Hello, good people of YouTube. Sealord here, and today we are talking about everyone's new aerial dropped explosive device, mines. If you don't know, Wargaming is currently testing mines. They're seeing how they work in the game, and they're planning on adding them in the future for the upcoming reintroduction of the odd tier CVs as the support CVs. So, right now, in-game, there's a new temporary battle type called Concealed Maneuvers. And I would highly, highly encourage you guys to go out and try this game mode for yourself so you can see what the mines are like for yourself and come to your own conclusions. If you want to do that, which again I highly encourage you to do so, you need a Tier 7 or a Tier 8 ship. Go over to the temporary battle type and, well, hit battle. It is a primetime game mode, which means that it's only active for certain times during the day. It appears it starts at around 11 a.m. U.S. Central Time and then goes well into the evening. Now, if you want to try out the mines for yourself, good thing Wargaming gave you the carriers already. If you look in the bottom of your carousel all the way to the left, you will see the Concord Bridge and the Japanese carrier that they've added to the game for, well, testing out these new features. The Concord Bridge has the mines. If you want to try out the mines, that's the ship you got to take. The Japanese carrier has a smokescreen. No one's trying that one out. I think I ran across maybe one or two of those carriers, but mostly it's the Concord Bridge because everyone wants to see how the mines work. So, we're going to talk about my experience using the mines, and then we're going to talk about my experience playing against the mines. So, let's talk about using them first. They're set up as a consumable on your dive bomber squadron in the Concord Bridge. So what you do is you fly over to an area on the map that you would like to deploy your minefield, you slap down W, a few seconds later a squadron of mine-laying aircraft will come and, well, drop a bunch of mines in that area. However, there's a 40-second arming time. And during that 40 seconds, the ships that are, well, right underneath your minefield, well, on top of your minefield, underneath your mine-laying planes, they can just sail right on through the mines without anything happening to them for 40 seconds. Now, this minefield is 2.5 kilometers in length. So, 40 seconds is a pretty long time in this game. Most ships can get just about all the way through that minefield in 40 seconds if they're in like the dead center. So typically you want to try and drop it where you think the ship is going. So typically ahead, you know, if they're moving ahead, if they're backing up behind them, or if you would like to block an area off from, well, being able to freely sail through, that's another thing that you can do as well. But in this game mode, since everyone's trying out the CVs, you know, most of the players, at least when I was playing the CVs, were bots. And bots kind of just full W, and they don't really care too much. They haven't added in the updated AI from Asymmetrics, apparently. So that was pretty difficult to try and get bots to, well, either go through at the right time or just not turn away from it. I did manage to get a couple of players in my minefield, and it was kinda underwhelming, because once they're in the minefield, most players will just back their ship down a bit on the speed side of things and use their ASW to destroy the mines, because that is something you can do. So both times I got players in my minefield, got a grand total of 1 mine hit. Because the players were smart, they backed down their speed, they used the ASW to clear out the path in front of them. And I'm like, oh, that's a little underwhelming. So what it is useful for, though, is let's say there's a certain cap, and there's an island where a DD always goes to hug the edge of it and just sit there and contest the cap. Well, with the minefield, you can go to that spot at the beginning of the match and drop a minefield there. That way you deny that DD the ability to just sit there and take that cap safely behind that island. Meaning that DD either has to wait for your mines to expire, which is 2 minutes and change, or I think it's 3 minutes actually, or they have to simply try to cap it in the open, which in turn allows your DD to cap it safely behind the island, or allows your team to, well, obliterate the enemy DD as he's trying to cap. It's more of a tactical tool from the using it perspective. It's definitely not a damage dealer. Will it do damage? Yeah, but it's not that great. The maximum damage right now is 4,533 damage on these mines. Factor in, we're playing at tier 7, tier 8, and most ships have at least 20-30% torpedo damage reduction. You're really only doing about 3,000 damage per mine hit. Again, give or take damage saturation and hitting a part of the ship that does or doesn't have torpedo protection. Again, it's about 3,000 damage. Now that is per mine, and if someone does just full on W through and just eats all of your mines, well yeah, that's going to do a lot of damage. But if they understand how it works, they go slow, drop their ASW, clear a path, not really much. Now, swapping over to the other side of it, playing against the mines. So after I did a few rounds of the Concord Bridge, I hopped over into my Massachusetts and went on about playing the mode. So it took about 3 or 4 games for someone to actually come over and drop a minefield on me. I don't know why. I was going out completely by myself, completely alone, and for once the CV doesn't go after me because, of course, when I want the CV to attack me when I'm a lone ship, it doesn't happen. So finally I got a game where the CV did fly over to some of Massachusetts and drop a minefield on me. And I purposefully sailed into the minefield, and I purposefully sailed over a couple of mines just to see what the damage was like. It wasn't too bad, but I slowed down, used my ASW just to clear out the mines, and the mines weren't much of a problem anymore. However, when you're stuck in the minefield, you have to sail through the path that you've cleared with your ASW, which means that you are completely vulnerable to further attacks from the CV, and of course too, if the enemy team is shooting at you, you can't angle, or if you want to angle, you're going to have to eat the mines. So either you're going to be like on top of it with your ASW aircraft, or you are going to have a bad time. So it's an interesting tactical tool. Now again, keep in mind, you have 40 seconds before these mines arm. And even in the Massachusetts, I was able to get through a large portion of the minefield before they even armed. I only had, I think it was like maybe 1.5 kilometers, if that, to get out of it. And again, I purposefully sailed into it when he dropped it on my Massachusetts. Most of the other real players, going back to the CV side of things, they would simply just turn around when I would drop the ASW, when I would drop the mines. They literally just turn around and maybe they're in it, but they just take the shortest route to get out of it, and it's a complete non-factor for them after that. So it's not something that's going to get dropped on your ship, and it's going to absolutely nuke your ship. And keep in mind too, the CV only has 3 charges of this, and he can't spam them back to back to back to back. There's a cooldown time in between. So right now, at least from the tier 8 side of things, it seems pretty well balanced and more like a tool than a weapon. It forces you to either, turn around from your current path. It denies the area to the enemy team. I think in competitive, it's going to be a very, very useful tool if they allow CVs back into clan battles and things like that. I think it's interesting. It adds another level of tacticalness to the game. And after 3 minutes, the mines do completely disappear, then that's it. Again, it's not really a devastating thing. I'm getting flashbacks to the airdrops that we have with the Dutch cruisers. The Dutch cruisers airstrikes, back when they were in testing, they were kind of cracked. And from what I've heard, I didn't get to play the first round of testing with the mine, so I did not get to see what those were like at all. I heard they were pretty dang busted in that round of testing. But this current version seems to be pretty, if you know what you're doing, if you pay attention, not a huge deal. It might force you to approach a situation from a different manner, but it's not going to, nuke your ship out off the face of the map. So it's a nice tactical tool. Now, what is interesting is that the next version of these mines are going to have wires that go down to the bottom of the seabed and submarines can hit those, and they're going to detonate on submarines. And while 4,000 damage isn't much to a tier 8 ship, that's a lot of damage to a sub. And submarines don't have ASW. So they can't call in an airstrike to drop depth charges on themselves and destroy these mines. So if you're a sub and you get a minefield dropped on top of you, that's going to be a different story. And keep in mind too, that means that either you're going to have to stay submerged and putter your way through it, burning your battery, which is going to take you forever to get through it because submarines, once they're submerged, they go like 13, 14, 15 knots. Or you're going to have to surface and, show yourself to everybody and get exposed and then get blasted. So it's going to be a pretty interesting tool, I think, in countering submarines. It's something that might wind up being something the player base actually likes. I know the player base, when Wargaming tries to do something new or different, they kind of lose their minds a little bit. But as of right now, I think these mines are pretty interesting. I'm very, very much intrigued by them and would like to see what Wargaming is going to do with them once they're, gone through their several rounds of testing. So guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about mines. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. I will be live streaming here tonight on the channel and on Twitch, so make sure to come out for that around 5 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Again, hope you guys have a great Friday, great weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.